Welcome back to Rappahannock Issues. I'm David Kerr. We're here with Ned Gallaway, candidate for the State Senate of Virginia from the 17th District. Mr. Gallaway, just a few minutes ago you were talking about your experience on the school board and what you said you felt needed to happen in Richmond to help support education. Right. It sounds like you got to get some real passion around that. Can you talk to that and just give us a little tutorial on where you're coming from with that statement?
It's two parts, right? So first off, it's funding. Education funding in the state has declined over the last 10 years. We're spending over $600 less per student this year, the current school year, than we did 10 years ago. And that declining a bit of investment has put a real burden on the localities around Virginia. So what happens is the state stops sending the revenue down. Your school division has to make a choice. They either have to cut services, or if they can't, they have to go to their local funding source, the Board of Supervisors or their city council, and say, we need this money. So now the local government has to decide, do we cut services around the rest of the locality, or do we have to raise a tax to be able to make up for what the state has not done? Well, it's really inhibiting because so many school divisions have made cuts and localities have made cuts. And now you even see localities having to go to a property tax in the sense of counties and start to raise that tax. I think that's an unfair position to put them in, that I think state legislators should be down there having the conversation, the revenue conversation, to say education's important. And if we have to raise revenue to do it, then we should have that conversation and see where the votes fall. But to continue to pass the burden down to localities and put that, it's not sustainable for county governments to continue to go back to a property tax, and it's also not sustainable for them to keep cutting away at what services they're providing kids. So we talk about getting passionate about something. I think the smartest investment we can make is in our kids. These are going to be our future leaders, our future doctors. They're going to be making policy for us. They're going to be teaching kids in the future. They're the ones that deserve the investment, and we're all going to benefit from that return. Now, the second piece of it that is critical is how are we educating our kids? And we've got this standardized testing culture in Virginia, the SOLs, and we need to get away from that. Because teaching to a test, we know, is not the best way to educate our kids. It's restrictive of not just their learning, but it's restrictive of the professionalism and creativity of our teachers. So I would really like to see us pull back. And this isn't just pulling back on tests or reducing the number of tests, which we've done. It's a good start. But at the end of the day, this is about letting teachers engage students in a more interesting educational environment. Project-based learning, things where you can do cross-curriculum, give them the flexibility so that a kid really is interested in what they're learning day in and day out. And then at the end of the day, the assessment, a standardized testing assessment, is a quick one-time snapshot of where a kid is at. But it doesn't measure things like student engagement. It doesn't measure things like year-over-year student growth. It doesn't measure things like school climate, all of which we know are better assessments of the quality of education being delivered in our schools. So I'd like to see the state move a little bit faster in terms of reforming SOLs, because we still want a sense of accountability, but let's raise that bar. Let's raise the bar and have a standards of quality that inspires and motivates teachers and kids so that when they go into the classroom, they're excited and engaged about what they're learning. And then school divisions, school board members around the division can go, okay, let's look at how did our students grow year over year? Are they engaged in the classroom? Is the school climate one that we can be proud of? Because at the end of the day, if that's occurring, then you know you've got quality education happening in the schools. And we just need to get this standardized testing culture needs to get out of the way. It's not doing us any service.
Thank you. Just taking this conversation to a different level of education, our state university system. I've seen this up close and personal for about the past 15, 20 years. There's never been a year go by when the tuition fees haven't increased substantially more than the level of inflation. And it's getting to the point where there are some students who simply can't afford to attend any state university. Right. What's broken there?
Well, I think it's similar to what I was saying about the K-12 revenue situation. You get folks that get into this political playbook area. We're not going to have, just blanket, I'm not raising taxes, or I'm not going to look at taxes. Now, taxes are not going to be the answer. This isn't just about raising taxes to pay for something. But at the end of the day, what are the priorities? K-12 got protected. The governor protected K-12 this last budget cycle, but higher education took a huge hit. And beyond, when you cut revenue or state funds down to a university, they're going to pass that along to the students in form of tuition or perhaps increase of fees. And it's the same thing I was making the point about the local governments. It's unfair to keep, if you're going to have the conversation, let's have the revenue discussion and then vote so that you can see where everybody's at. But to just not have the discussion and pass it down to students at the university level seems to be unfair. And again, it's not sustainable for them to keep seeing tuition go up or fees increase. The other part, though, that's a little short-sighted in my opinion about not investing in higher ed, I think it's Virginia Commonwealth University took the biggest hit this last cycle. A lot of universities had a cut, but their budget was cut somewhere up 11, 12, 13%. And I talked at one point, making some phone calls, talking around the different places in the 17th, ran into a researcher there, and as part of that cut, biomedical research got cut out at VCU, as he was explaining to me. And it's that idea that these are the types of research studies that are figuring out like cures for Alzheimer's and things like that. Well, those are worthy things to be investing in, and it's short-sighted that if we're putting such pressure, the universities have to be deciding to cut things like that, that's problematic. So we need folks in the General Assembly to go, no, let's have an honest conversation. And budgets are a list of priorities, so let's get in the room, let's prioritize it, and let's let a vote fall where it may, that if we don't have the revenue, are we willing to raise the revenue to accomplish these investments? And then let's see where people stand on that. Let's not just pass it down to other folks down the food chain to pay for it.
We're coming to the end of this segment, and I'm going to take a radical shift in questioning here, which is part of the job of being in the state Senate. You can vote on one issue 1 minute and be voting on child care the next.
Right.
But this has to do with police and body cameras. Do you, in principle, support body cameras on state and local police officers?
In principle, I support the idea of it, and I'll tell you how I came to that decision. I've started to watch different localities around Virginia choose to do it. It started with law enforcement, and they think it's a good idea to do. Nobody has said you have to do it. So I'm seeing, like in the city of Charlottesville, I think one of the first that I believe are going to move to that. And when I can see law enforcement saying they think this is a good idea, and they see how it plays out with their community, and it's building from that kind of ground up versus some regulatory body coming in and saying you must do this, I think not only will it be more effective for the community that way since they're deciding to do it, but it's very difficult for me to say, well, no, I wouldn't be for that if I see law enforcement agencies choosing and think it's a good idea on their own.
Well, we're going to be coming back and talking about more issues in just a moment, so please don't leave us, and we'll be right back.